Hello and welcome back to the Peru Travel Podcast. I'm your host, David Kozlowski. Alongside me is Kevin Groh, and today we're flipping the script. Typically, I'm usually asking Kevin questions because of the knowledge that he's got. And, I was very lucky enough to go to Peru and get some firsthand experience. So we're going to talk about that for the next few episodes. By few, I mean, I think we wrote down like 23 different episodes. But Kev, dude, say hi at least, man.
What's up? How's it going?
Feeling awkward here.
Traveling to Peru in the time of COVID.
That's right, yeah. Had to get it done because we had some important things we needed to do down in Peru. We needed to see David, Ryan community, obviously. There's a whole host of interesting things. So today's episode, we're going to be specifically talking about traveling during COVID, what it means to you, how to be able to get there, what to do when you're there, what the regulations are constantly changing. So this is going to be part of this. When we talk about the current regulations, we'll be out of date. However, I don't think protocols and the way that they're treating COVID when you're there is going to change much. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's too ingrained in their culture right now, from what I'm seeing, that I just don't think there's any way that it's going to be like, oh yeah, hey, everything's good again, like whatever. And I will say they're very pumped about the vaccine.
Nice.
There's a deal right now with China, I believe. When I was there, it was happening.
And the other day, also the U.S. They also
really
said the U.S. as well. Yep.
That the U.S. is going to partner with Peru.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool, perfect. So we'll see. Again, who knows? But I want to just be able to have this experience, be chalked up, be able to kind of have you guys comb through it and get a rough idea when they do open up this 14-day quarantine. And I want to talk a little bit about the experience. I mean, everything was kind of fighting against us for this trip, right? Like, who travels during a pandemic? I get it. I get the criticism here. However, there was some circumstances where I needed to be in Peru, and we can talk about that in later episodes with David mainly, Ryan community. And then on top of that, we had some educators that we were doing an Educating with Cachi trip with. So let me talk about day one. This trip has been pushed back multiple times. Finally had the opportunity to go. My work is so gracious enough to let me go down there and work for a month. And on top of all this, the day before we fly, Christmas Day, there's a bombing in Nashville. And that bombing delays our flight, which then delays our flight which then makes us miss our flight from Miami to Lima, where we originally were like, yay, we're going to get in at 3:00 and be able to get a good dinner before we travel the next day. We didn't. It was horrible.
And get to meet the teachers before you actually hop on the next flight.
None of that. No, not even a chance. And our next flight the next morning was like 4 a.m. We had to wake up or something horrible.
Yeah, that was my call. The one that's not going.
Yeah. Yeah, it was miserable. Kevin basically handled all logistics at the front end, and it was definitely helpful. The second Kevin didn't have the logistics managed, boy, the trip became a nightmare to a degree. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't a nightmare. It was very much like fly by the seat of our pants. Let's see what happens, just because things were changing. I mean, the things were closed. There was a lot of sites that we wanted to see that we couldn't see. A lot of things that we had planned to do that we couldn't do. So we just adjusted and course corrected as needed.
I think that's what's going to be kind of the future of travel in the immediate future, just having to be flexible.
Exactly. And it really tests your patience. I mean, we had talk about a group that didn't travel with us. They traveled with another organization. But one of our guides, Frank, David's brother, was on a hike through Rainbow Mountain, which is I want to say it was a week and a half or 2 week hike. So they were out there for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, they were out there for quite a long time. But they ended up getting to this area outside of Rainbow Mountain, and there was so much snow they couldn't continue. So they had to pack up their things and turn around. They ended up going to Puno.
Wow.
But yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, it's just kind of the nature of the beast right now. There's just not a lot of travel and a lot of foot traffic. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. So I'll tell you out the gate, you finally get into Peru. The second you get into Peru, you got your mask on, right? And not only do you have to show proof of your PCR test, but you got to have a face shield on, which is very interesting on top of the mask. But
definitely different than the U.S. for sure.
Yeah, the whole thing, the whole experience is different. That's why when people are always, there's some people who are, I'm not too thrilled about this whole coming back to the country and have to do quarantine. It's not that I'm doing it right now because I don't have to, but the new standard is you have to do quarantine. And the response a lot of people have, well, COVID's killing a lot of people. Sure it is, but some of these countries are handling COVID way better and way different than the United States is. And I'm not going to put my political opinion on anybody or anything like that because that's not what I'm saying here, or my own non-medical I don't know shit about medical, so I'm just giving my own experience here of what I've seen. But I mean, as Kevin said, the cat's out of the bag. Like we're so far gone right now with COVID in the States. Putting interesting measures on, I guess, doesn't really. Who knows if it'll make it better? We'll see. Right? That's probably the easiest way to.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much unknown. It's such a new disease still, even now, even a year later. There's so much nobody really knows. You know, it's still going up in cases.
And when we talk about what nobody knows, we're going to talk about some things that I saw that I was like, I don't even know if this helps, but we'll see. So we get to the airport. It's dead, empty, absolutely nobody there. Bags come out, grab the bags, show proof of the PCR test, go through security. Again, no one there. Go through customs. That wasn't too bad of an experience. However, they were eyeballing me, man. Like, ooh, funny story. And I know we're talking about politics. Not to get into politics. Kevin and I are very middle of the road. Listen to both sides. We barely pick a side in general. We usually just hate all politicians. So we're those guys. But one guy was there at the airport rocking a good old MAGA shirt, and Trump hat. Mm-hmm. MAGA t-shirt, Trump hat, and my brother has joined us on this trip. My brother is from he's a stepbrother. We have the same mother, which another funny story. We were in Manu. I'll get to that in a second. So many stories. This guy's sitting here with a MAGA shirt, and I'm like, what is this dude doing in Peru? Rocking this Trump stuff. Like, this is just, like, me personally, I didn't think that anybody in Peru would like Trump. Later on, I learned a little bit more about Peruvian politics and Ecuadorian politics a little bit more too, which, Venezuelan politics, which was pretty surprising. But, anyways, brother Emilio looks at me and he's like, or Marco looks at me and goes, what the hell do you think he's doing here? I go, he's probably going to build a wall.
Oh my God.
It was a funny moment. Do we need to delete that?
I don't know.
But
you can't have the humor in anything anymore nowadays.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. I mean, I didn't think the guy was a bad dude, but you could tell he was a Southern country boy rocking all this Trump stuff, and I was just kind of confused. I was like, well, whatever. Anyways, so we're in the airport. We walk outside of baggage claim, and usually at this point, Kevin, as you know, this place is slammed with people, hundreds and hundreds of people, tax cab drivers, tour agencies, you name it. Everyone's in there, and it's dead. There's 0 people in the room. And you go outside, there's no taxis. There's a couple off to the side. There's nobody. It's dead.
Crazy. It's usually like jam-packed, like balls to the wall.
Yeah. Nuts to butt. And there's nothing. There's nothing. There's nobody there.
Super spreaders.
Yeah. It was crazy. So next morning, woke up bright and early, 4 o'clock in the morning. Thanks, Kevin. And get our next flight off to Cusco. Same thing, having to wear a face shield. When you're traveling in a train or a flight, you have to wear a face shield and your mask. We get to Cusco, and there's David. You want to know the first thing David said to me when we got in the van?
What's that?
He said, you guys are the first white people I've seen in a year.
Wow. First gringo, right?
Yeah. He was just like, literally
wow.
He literally made the joke to Frank and goes, because there was a couple other, there was like 2 other white people on the flight. And he was just like, and Marco's not white, so I'm the only white person, rather. Nor was Camilo or Jose. Like, everyone is Hispanic but me. Camilo looks a little bit whiter. He's I think he's mixed. But it was so funny when he was just like, yeah, like, it's crazy to see like a white person. And
tells you how much the world has changed, just in one country.
Yeah.
I mean, big place on tourism and
yeah, and hopefully, tourism obviously was supposed to pick up. And now there's the 14-day quarantine. I'm sure it'll go back down. We've had inquiries about Inca Trail, things like that. And unfortunately, it's just like hit or miss because the government regulation keeps going up and down. Right. Hopefully this vaccine helps. But we end up going to the hotel. You got to show proof through your PCR test again. You got to show like your little visa thing. It's not a visa, but it's something like it.
They give you like a COVID visa, or what do you mean?
They give you like a QR code.
Huh.
Like, I don't know if it was a COVID. It was something.
What does the QR code tell them?
Man, I honestly, God, don't know.
Huh.
I had to fill out 3 different forms of documents. One of them was all in Spanish, so Marco helped me.
Sure.
And it was just basically like, where are you going? What are you doing on the trip?
Yeah.
Right. None of it was used because the trip that I told them I was doing, I didn't do, and nobody said anything when I left.
Huh.
So I'm back in the States. No one's knocking on my door.
Sure.
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. I'm a little terrified about it. No, I mean, so basically, as the trip progressed, again, just strictly talking about COVID, everything in Cusco very strict. Social distancing was extremely important. They have little circles on the ground now when you're like waiting in queues where you can't go past the circle. You have to wait in there with your individual, each person. Anytime you get on a bus, a train, got to have a face shield. Any moving transport where you're in close proximity with people, you have to have a face shield on. Honestly, God, by the end of the trip of that first week with Camilo and Jose, our masks were off in the van. Like we were like, you know what? We've been in this together. There's no it is what it is. So in the van, we took off our masks. Anytime we left, though, we wore a mask.
Kind of like they talk about the travel bubbles. You only go with certain people.
Sure.
Or something like that.
Yeah. What is that exactly?
There's an idea kind of going around of creating travel bubbles where, like, literally you do tours with this same group of people. Like you're not mixing, mixing and matching different groups into, to limit spread. You're always with the same person.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I'll do some high level stuff too here of just kind of telling you guys like what some of the precautions are that they have that are just very different than the States.
Sure.
So you do have to wear a mask outside. I know some states in the U.S. do require a mask outside. Tennessee does not. It was like kind of scary at first when I walked outside and realized that people were in Kroger the other day without a mask on. Or people are walking around outside without a mask on. I was like, whoa, this is strange. This is not normal. So that's one. I talked about the face mask. Another one is that the doorway, the entryway, which, man, I thought that this was like a Peruvian thing and I just forgot about it. Doorways have 2 to 3 mats. What those mats are, one is full of water, and then the other one has got like a towel. We spoke with a girl who is studying to be an anesthesiologist who told us that they believe, and she laughed, that was hilarious, that people believe that you have the virus on your feet and you're washing off the virus before you step into the building. Now,
it's just water, or is there something mixed in the water?
There might be some alcohol. But I mean, and again, let me be clear, this is just third party. She could have been joking with us. I don't remember cleaning mats walking into buildings. Do you?
In the U.S.?
In Peru.
Oh, no, never before.
All right.
Yeah.
So this is this is a COVID thing for sure. Yeah. All right, cool. Just making sure. Anytime that you did transactions with cash, they were spraying your bills with hand sanitizer type stuff, like a spray. Hand sanitizer, vice versa. They wouldn't touch your bills. There were some rural areas that didn't wear masks. That was pretty evident. That just COVID didn't really ever reach them. Hell, I mean, they hadn't seen a traveler in over a year.
Right.
And some of that stuff was pretty epic. I mean, we saw one white guy the entire time, which is a funny story about that. So he says one guy, James, right? This is so freaking nuts. Okay. Like, so we see James in Manu, and there's a whole story with Manu that's absolutely freaking wild and crazy that I can't wait to get to the Manu podcast. It just doesn't even make sense how it all went down. James has got dreads, he's got bearded dreads. He's a typical like hippie traveler. He's going for medicine in Peru, ayahuasca, things like that.
Yeah.
And we end up eating food with him. He's this super cool guy, free spirit. Spend the whole time in Manu with him. This is how you know there's no travelers, because one day in Lima, we're walking in Miraflores and Kennedy Park, and we're passing an alley. It's the only place in Lima where chess players play. I knew James played chess, but I didn't think I would. We were just walking by to go get dinner, right? Like we were just walking by, and I look right, and I see a white dude with dreads. I look back at Marco. I said, "Damn, that's James." And he's like, "No way!" Like Lima's huge. Lima's massive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Let's walk around the corner. We'll look back down the alley." I see the reactions of James, and it reminds me of James. And I'm like, "That is James." We walk up. I go, "What are you doing here?" James turns around. He's like, "Oh my God!" Like freaks out. Like he's like, "What are you guys doing?" He went and ate dinner with us before he flew out. It was crazy. The fact that you're able to spot another person. It was just, that's so bizarre. Like it was keep in mind, Manu was like 3 weeks ago. from the time that we saw James. So it was a
Right.
long time.
Yeah.
James like traveled to Cusco.
In a big country.
Like, yeah, went to
In a big city.
yeah. It was so crazy. And actually, so another part of the COVID stuff is there was a curfew in Lima at 11 o'clock when we first got there, and then it went down to 9
Right.
p.m. Let me tell you something. You don't know how shitty it is, unless you're Californian or anybody else has a curfew, how shitty it is to know that you can't get food after 9 p.m.
Oh.
When you don't know, like, you don't have Uber Eats, you've got Rapido or whatever it's called.
What is it? Rap?
It's like Rapid or Rapido. It's
Huh.
kind of like they have these little bike guys that drive
Sure.
around with little food things. But I mean, I don't know how to use it. Marco couldn't get his card to work. It wasn't working with his credit card.
Huh.
Yeah, dude. There were nights where like we didn't know what to eat, know what to drink. Like we didn't know it was 9 o'clock until all of a sudden like we didn't hear the news. You know, super interesting. So he ended up having to go to the airport early before 9 o'clock because his flight was at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because curfew.
He had to go the night before?
He had to go the night of. His flight was at 2 a.m. or midnight, one of the two.
Oh,
But he had
got
to
it.
get there before
Got it,
9
got it.
p.m. because of curfew.
Yeah.
I've got photos. I put them on my Instagram story that like of Kennedy Park dead, like it absolutely dead. The roundabouts empty. You never
Crazy.
see that. And this is a place that when you wake up in the morning, you're waking up because you're hearing cars beep. I don't live in New York. Never lived in a city.
Crazy.
This has to be what it's like to live in New York. Bam, bam, honk, honk, like all freaking day. It's insane. Nighttime, quiet.
Crazy.
It was eerie and weird.
It's like the apocalypse.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow.
It was seriously crazy, man. One of the nights, Marco and I were chilling, and so we had this like rented this really cool flat that like overlooked Kennedy Park, and super cheap. I'm assuming due to COVID, cost a couple $100. But as we were looking, this cleaning crew. I don't know if they were just cleaning for dirt, but there was in our heads, they're like, there's no way, because this guy would have a bucket. He would have a like a garbage can bucket, like the ones that you roll to the end of the street, and they would fill it up with this material from a truck, and then he would take another bucket and he'd throw it, but it wasn't soapy and sudsy. And another guy came with another truck and he was spraying the street. It was different. So I don't know if he was cleaning because they thought COVID was on the streets. I'm not too sure, but they
Sure.
definitely took the precautions to a whole new level while we were in Peru. Machu Picchu, and we're going to get a new episode about how Machu Picchu's changed. I've been to Machu Picchu twice before this trip. When we walked up to Machu Picchu that day, the bus was almost empty.
No way.
We get out of Machu Picchu. I about had a heart attack. David looked at me dead. First off, I'm freaking out because I'm like, there's no one here. There's not a line.
It's always slammed.
There's not a line. There's nobody. David looks
Crazy.
at me. He just starts laughing. He's like, this is insane. He's like, I've never seen Machu Picchu with no one.
Man, I wish I was there for it.
We were taking photos and no one was in them. Just
Wow.
a security guard maybe here or there.
Yeah.
There's nobody there.
Wow.
No one. It was just unreal.
Holy crap.
I took this great photo that I was like, man, this is like, I feel like I'm not that great of a photographer, but I feel like a Nat Geographic photographer.
Yeah.
Because I took a photo of people waiting in line for the bus, and they were all in those individual circles.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like they were 6 feet apart, each of them, and everyone wearing masks and face shields. And it was just like so interesting. It was an interesting time to travel because, you know, I don't know, we didn't get COVID. Sure, we could have. But everything was open. We're like helping the economy in a good way because that's the other thing too. I mean, this decimated the economy there.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah. People are hurting.
Exactly. David and I talked about it. Like, Ryan community is, quote, surviving. David, I'm not going to get into David's personal finances, but like Cachi is partnering with David, and David is giving work to other people because he's like, I've got Cachi, like it's okay, we're going to be fine. This is where the biggest thing I learned on this trip is the heart that guy has. It's unreal. Like, I like to think that I'm a good person at times, but that guy surpasses me light years. And
What do you mean?
well, I'll tell you, so Cachi didn't do well last year, right?
You don't say.
Yeah. So we to get a little into the heart of what we do. So yeah, Cachi didn't do well. We didn't have much money except for personal finances, to give to Ryan community. And really, no one was in Ryan community because everyone left to try to get jobs. And a lot of the people in Ryan either like worked on hikes or they were farmers, and farming kind of slowed down. And what do you do in the situation when your logistics department's completely shut down and you can't transfer food? So David, who hasn't worked almost a year, right? He's living off of what he saved. I mean, first off, I'm like proud to be David's friend, right? And to be part of David's family, as he says, because I'm like, the guy made this decision to save money so aggressively to be able to survive a wave like this. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I mean, this taught us a very valuable lesson where we were a new company. We weren't making a ton of revenue in general. If anything, we all have day jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, nonetheless, David spent his own money in Ryan community to give gifts and clothes. Like he worked, Carmen, his wife, worked with local families to get as many t-shirts and pairs of pants and shoes and things like that to give to the kids. But like he had these goodie bags and I'm looking at him, I'm like, dude, how much does this cost? Like, what do you need? Like, let's talk about it. So we had a lot of conversations about like what David needed and what his family needed, things like that. And things are great. We'll just say that. But when I was talking with Frank on the way up to Machu Picchu, I said, David is so proud of Cachi. and Frank said, we really struck the jackpot, man, when it comes to David. He said about David something that I didn't get to tell David, but it's those things that when people talk about you behind your back in a way that is so positive, it's like, wow, that person, I'm going to just kind of tell you what he said. Basically said, David cares so much about Cachi, but David cares so much about people. He's so proud. Mm-hmm. He is so proud to wear Cachi shirts. I mean, the guy didn't wear a damn shirt the entire time I was there that didn't have Cachi on it. He gave the trip to his brother. The whole entire Educating with Cachi trip gave to his brother to do. And just the generosity, the big brother mentality that he has, even though he has an older brother, his heart and just who he is as an individual is just, yeah, I mean, I guess from a patience perspective and a heart perspective, I can only dream to be as compassionate as that guy is. Like the way that he handles things and the way Carmen handles things and Carmen's upbringing. And there's some stuff that, I got to ask if we can mention on the podcast about Carmen's upbringing, but like unbelievable. Just this family and what they've gone through. We're not even talking about COVID right now, so I apologize. But if you get a chance to meet David, please do. If you go to Peru, like even if you just say, hey, I want to get coffee with the guy, we'll ask him if he's available because he's just a happy go lucky guy. Which I want to do a podcast about culture because most Peruvians, Marco is Mexican. And he had his own thoughts about Peruvians. Marco, my brother. He had his own thoughts about Peruvians and how like cold-shouldered a lot of them are. And David like acknowledged that and told him how it took him years to be this happy, go-lucky guy that he is because he realized that Americans aren't that way. And it's just super interesting. This time with David, I spent more time with him than I ever have, and it was very educational. Getting back on COVID, so we're not derailing completely. The train, dead. Vista Dome, completely dead. No fashion show, nothing like that. Not serving food. The experience of what you would think to experience during COVID, just imagine everything's just different. Shut down early. All the hikes were closed. We couldn't do the Inca Trail, which we really wanted to do. It was a big bummer. There were some letdowns, but there was some also like real big benefits because things were closed and we got to see things that most people wouldn't see. Because there was just not a lot of regulation, I guess. A lot of things that weren't there.
Sure.
So there's like pros and cons. If you go during COVID, I'd recommend going again in the future when all this stuff settles down. If you haven't gone during COVID, well, I'd wait till the quarantine stops and then maybe think about it. But, obviously you're taking a risk with traveling during a pandemic. Go figure.
Right.
And I'm sure I'll get flack for this, for traveling during a pandemic. But, it was a great experience. I'm very thankful for it. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something. Oh, yeah. Hell. Sometimes you'd walk into a place and they would literally have a weed sprayer pump, like big one on the back one.
Yeah.
They'd spray you down. They would spray you down.
As a person?
You as a person.
What was in it? What was in this?
Like, the stuff that you put in your hands, like whatever it's called.
Like Purell or whatever?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like a spray.
But I could just imagine walking into Kroger or McDonald's and
somebody spraying you.
Someone spraying me at the door.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
When we
that's
drove into
different
Chive, I think it's Chive. It's a city where you can go and look at condors up in the mountains. Pretty interesting little town actually. It's actually the biggest canyon. I think Chive is in Colca Canyon. I'm pretty sure it's in Colca Canyon and it's a part, of Colca Canyon. Anyways, we're driving in there. They had pumps spraying down the cars. Not you as a person, the cars.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, we don't do that here.
From a healthcare perspective, do you think that that's beneficial?
I mean, honestly, I'm not up to date on if it's staying on vehicles or what surfaces it stays on. I think the last I heard that it's more airborne,
Right.
rather than surface based. But
Sure.
I mean, yeah, it's just different. I mean, they're a lot more strict than we are in the U.S.
Yeah.
Um,
They are. Because of this, I didn't go to a casino to play craps. I really wanted to do that. I did get to go to Mido, which
nice.
we're gonna have a whole episode on that. You want to talk about? We talked about Central on this episode on this podcast. Nope, Mido's where it's at. Like that is the best restaurant I've ever been to. So amazing, such good food. But all in all, great trip. Made it back safely. When I came back, it was like a culture shock due to how things are being handled. I mean, when I was there too, it felt like the world was ending in the States. The Capitol got bombarded. All this like crazy shit was going on. I didn't think that we would have peaceful. What's the word? Succession? Would that be
transfer of power?
Transfer of power. Like it was chaos, man. I was like, shit, dude, I hope I can get back to the country. Like, what's going on, right? Lima was no nightlife. Restaurants were very unique. A lot of places were closed. Barbershops only had one barber in it, and it was like one person in the room at a time. However, restaurants were operating kind of looked like normal at times, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
The food still was great. A lot of great places. I didn't get to see Daniela due to COVID.
Sure.
She, I'm not too sure of the whole situation, but she got exposed to somebody, got tested negative, but they were still saying they weren't going to go out. Then I ended up seeing on Instagram that they were still out eating food. I was like, you little punks. Like, then she was like, oh, come out. And I'm like, no, we're good. I don't want to risk getting potentially COVID. All in all, great trip. A lot of I'm sure like more differences will come out as we kind of talk about it, but similar to the States too, right? Like a lot of the big cities were handling it very aggressively, whereas the rural areas, it's almost like it didn't even exist.
Right.
And it wasn't a thing. So yeah, that's I guess the start of the podcast of like 23 episodes that we could potentially do based off this trip. Hopefully this is like somewhat insightful. If I could give any recommendations out the gate, don't get a shitty face mask. Get one that ventilates because otherwise it fogs up. That part sucks. The temperature stuff is happening everywhere. They're taking your temperature before you enter in buildings. I don't know if that's helpful, but they do take hard precautions. The healthcare system I'm not too familiar with in Peru.
I'm not either.
So I have no idea if I could tell you that it's like, if you get COVID, you're going to be fine or bad. Everything really just depends on you as an individual. Be smart. Take a PCR test. Obviously, before you go, you have to anyways. But
you can do for Peru. You can do the rapid as well.
Sure.
So that's an option. Rapid or the PCR.
Yeah.
Whichever.
So yeah. And now there's a 14-day quarantine that may change. So just be aware of that. But I don't know. A part of me, selfishly, I feel like I say selfishly because I know that people are very like anti do anything right now during COVID. Right.
Right.
But selfishly, I'm going to be honest. I think traveling during this time gives you a different perspective of how the rest of the world handles situations like this.
Sure.
So
yeah.
I feel like I got I got some education on this trip that I don't think anybody ever in their entire lives will be able to get.
For sure.
That's probably the easiest way to explain it. I don't know if I did it the right way. I still don't know. Like, I hope I don't get a lot of hate mail for this. Because we know we get some hate mail once in a while, but
here's the thing: everyone's got an opinion on no matter which way you do something, you're gonna get some hate mail,
right?
And then you're gonna get some love mail too.
Yeah. But I mean, it definitely from an education side, I was very, very educational from that angle. And it really, the time that I spent about a month. I think it was like 27 days or something like that. But I learned a lot about Peru. I learned a lot about the culture. I learned a lot about the political system. I learned a lot about beliefs and opinions of the United States. And I got to see a lot of cool things to then talk about and experience, and things that I think are overrated, things that are underrated. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it all. So
Cool.
any questions?
Mm-mm.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
that's it. If you got any questions about COVID-19 and traveling to Peru, obviously feel free to reach out to us. Check out the Peru Tips for Travelers. Check out Peru Tips for Travelers Facebook group.
Yep.
And that thing seems to be popping off right now. And if you've got any questions, like I said, email us. We're down to help. And safe travels. Be healthy out there.
Review us on the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll read your review.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any lately, but we also
Subscribe.
haven't been putting out any content. So
Well, we got that one email a couple months back. It wasn't on the actual podcast, but we got that one email.
was it a good email?
Oh no.
No, it was a bad email. They didn't like me. They didn't like us.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Explicit rating right there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think kind of the perspective we're taking too is we're just going to kind of be who we are and not be remorseful for it. We're learning a lot. There's a cat at the window. We're going to learn a lot about this country, this beautiful place that we know and love. And hopefully, if you don't like us, you share the belief that you care about the place that we've been to and that we have big passions for. We love Peru. We may not represent it in the best way possible every single time, but I feel like I got a pretty good grasp, especially now, on what's going on down there and the people and the culture. And, all I can say is I care about it a lot too. So if you care a lot about it and you're mad at me, at least you care about it. So that's about it. Look at that cat. All right, guys. Have a wonderful day. Be on the lookout for the next podcast and more coming at you. A lot of great photos, videos, stuff like that coming too, which will hopefully help sell this story about what we experienced. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Pumped.
yeah.
I'm pumped to hear more.
Thanks, guys. Y'all be good. Take care. Happy travels.